right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're going to really get into it, really dive deep. We're talking about how to make classrooms, really awesome, effective teaching practices, all that good stuff. And, we're not just going to skim the surface here.
Right.
We're going deep.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, if you're listening to this, you're probably already kind of into this stuff, thinking about new ways to approach teaching, how to really make a difference in the classroom.
Yeah, and I think there's so much out there right now, so much research, so many teachers doing really amazing things.
Totally, yeah. So, okay, let's jump right in. One of the things I keep hearing about is inquiry-based learning and project-based learning. These are big buzzwords in education right now.
Yeah.
But what do they actually mean, and how do they really work in a classroom?
So I think one of the coolest things about inquiry-based learning is that it really turns students into detectives almost. So instead of just being told information, they're actively figuring things out.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they're asking questions, they're doing research, they're conducting experiments.
So it's more hands-on.
It's totally hands-on, and it really helps them retain that knowledge because they've discovered it themselves.
Right. Okay, and then what about project-based learning? How does that tie in?
So project-based learning kind of takes it a step further. Students are still working on a project,
Yeah.
but it's usually connected to a real-world problem. So let's say they're studying climate change.
Mm-hmm.
They might do a project where they design a sustainable community.
Wow.
Or come up with solutions to reduce their school's carbon footprint.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really about applying those skills.
Yeah, so it's not just theoretical. It's actually they're doing something.
Exactly. They're making a difference, and that makes it so much more engaging for them.
That's so cool. Okay, so these both sound really great.
Mm-hmm.
But, in a real classroom,
Mm-hmm.
you have kids at all different levels, different learning styles,
Yeah.
How do you make sure that everyone's getting what they need?
Yeah, that's where differentiated instruction comes in, which is sounds really complicated, but it's basically just about recognizing that not all students learn the same way.
Right.
Right. So, some students might need more visual aids, some might need more hands-on activities, and it's about providing those different options.
So how do teachers actually do that? What are some examples of differentiated instruction and action?
So one thing that teachers can do is tiered assignments. So let's say you have a writing assignment.
Mm-hmm.
You could have 3 different levels of that assignment, one that's more basic,
Yeah.
one that's more challenging,
Mm-hmm.
and one that's super advanced. And then you can assign those based on the student's needs.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And it makes it so that everyone feels challenged,
Right.
but not overwhelmed.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, now we got to talk about technology.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's everywhere, right? And it's definitely changing how we learn and how we teach.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how can we use technology to create more personalized learning experiences?
I mean, there's so much potential there,
Yeah.
right? You have things like adaptive learning platforms, which are basically programs that can track a student's progress and adjust the difficulty level based on how they're doing.
So if they're struggling with a certain concept, it'll
Exactly. It'll give them more practice on that concept. And then if they're, flying through it, it'll move them ahead.
So it's kind of like having a personal tutor.
Yeah, it's like a personalized tutor for every student.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What are some other examples of cool tech in the classroom?
I mean, there are so many educational apps now that are just incredibly engaging and interactive,
Mm-hmm.
and they can make learning really fun for kids.
Yeah.
And then you have things like simulations,
I mean, yeah.
which can, create experiences that would be impossible to have in a real classroom.
Okay.
You can do virtual dissections.
Oh,
You can
no.
explore different historical periods.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's really amazing what's possible now.
Okay, so it sounds like technology can be a really powerful tool,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's also important to remember that technology should enhance teaching, not replace it,
Absolutely.
right? We still need those human connections in the classroom.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Those relationships between teachers and students, those are so important.
Yeah, because when students feel like their teacher knows them and cares about them,
Yeah.
they're way more likely to engage in the material. They're more likely to, ask questions and take risks. And that's where the real learning happens, right?
So, totally. It's I remember, back in high school,
Hmm.
I had this one teacher who was just so passionate about history.
Yeah.
And like, it was contagious. I didn't even really like history that much before,
Right.
but because of her and her enthusiasm, I like got totally into
Yeah,
it.
that's the power of a great teacher.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about all these like really cool strategies and tools,
Mm-hmm.
but like none of this works without amazing teachers,
Of
right?
course not, yeah.
So how do we empower teachers to be the best they can be?
So I think like one of the most important things is ongoing professional development
Okay.
because teaching is not like a one and done kind of thing, right? It's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
There's always new research, new strategies, new technologies.
Right.
So teachers need to have access to that information and those opportunities to learn and grow.
Right. So it's not just about giving them like a textbook and saying, okay, good luck.
Right, exactly.
It's about like ongoing support.
It's about support, it's about resources.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture where teachers feel valued and respected.
Right. And like that they can experiment and try new things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, this has been a really like eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. Yeah.
And it's really got me thinking about like what the ideal classroom of the future could look like.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
if we could create a classroom that really had it all,
Yeah.
what would that be like? And like what would be our top priority? That's something for you all to think about. But for now, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into effective teaching practices. It's been a blast.
It has. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.